All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Limitless MD. I'm your host, Vikram Raya, and here I have Josh Elledge, a U.S. Navy veteran, an entrepreneur who started Up My Influence, an incubator site to help audiences grow their authority and influence. He's built multiple seven-figure companies, all with zero paid advertising, and he is a podcast master. He's a father of three, and he lives in Orlando, Florida. And on this episode, he's going to teach you the number one thing that's holding doctors back from starting their podcast, how doctors can build their authority, and the things that can make you go from zero to an influencer in less than 30 days. So powerful episode. He also shares some of the best business books on media and marketing and influence out there. So you don't want to miss this episode.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? My name is Vikram Raya, functional cardiologist, high-performance coach, and real estate expert. And I'm here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life so you can unlock your limitless potential and achieve greatness, all the while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Limitless MD. I'm your host, Vikram Raya, and I'm here with my good friend, Josh Elledge. Josh, welcome to the show.
Dr. Vic, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. Oh my goodness. I am so pumped, guys. Josh is an amazing, an expert, a media influencer. He is sort of a master of podcasting, and you guys are going to learn a ton today. So with that, I'm going to jump right in because I want to get, the nuggets of this gentleman's brain here. So let me ask you a question. How did you know that podcasting was the next it thing? Because you got into this thing pretty early, Josh.
I did. And it was really just out of a kind of I'm a fan of repurposing, right? And it's like, if you're going to do something, how can I use my time more effectively? And so this was back in March of 2007. I had just launched Savings Angel. I had managed to talk my way into being able to appear on radio on a regular basis in my local market. And so I was aware of podcasting, fairly, tech savvy. And so I just said, well, I'm not going to, just be satisfied with this this going out over the airwaves and then it's gone, right? Because that's typical media. Like, no. I'm going to find a way to record that, capture it. And then there was this new thing of podcast. So these, people had these, Apple iPods. And so you could record your audio and then you could create an RSS feed, which is basically just a text file of instructions of what the title of the podcast is, what the show notes and what the URL is of the actual MP3 file that would now become this podcast. So I was hand coding my own RSS feeds by taking my radio segment. And so I wanted to do that for a couple of reasons. Number one is that, and now fast forward 2,500 media appearances later, what I know is that when you are communicating to a new audience for the first time, so someone's listening to Limitless MD, they love you, Dr. Vic. They're just getting to hear me for the first time. The jury's still out on whether they like me or not. And so, but what I know, and I even asked your permission as we started recording here, say, would you mind if I recorded on my end? And the reason why is because my audience already has familiarity with me, some know, like, and trust. And so if I can get this content in front of them, then they are much more likely to engage and buy. And so for years and years and years and years and years, for close to a decade, I've done a lot of media consulting. And so I believe that most people overvalue visibility and they undervalue authority. So what you want to do in everything that you do, it's amazing when we think about the amount of information and content that we are producing on a daily basis, especially if you do any like one-on-one consulting or one-on-one calls with people, that information, you dispense it to that one person, then it's kind of gone, right? And so here would be my recommendation for anyone listening to this podcast. Find ways to repurpose, to multi-use, to invite the glam squad, if you will, to follow you around everywhere. And it doesn't take much. Just, it's like the Beatles in the studio, right? Just record everything. And it's, what does disk space cost? Nothing. But capture it and then, hire, VAs. Honestly, there are VAs that specialize in this. They're not very expensive. So get them to say, hey, go through this interview I just did, go through this little Zoom presentation I just did. And what I want you to find are those mic drop moments, right? I want you to find those little, 10-second, 20-second, 30-second, 1 minute, 3-minute clips or whatever. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take that, grab the video clips, and I want you to make them, put them in story format or whatever, and get them out on Instagram, get them out on TikTok, get them out on Facebook, wherever your audience hangs around with most. Because here's the thing, your audience wants to connect with you. All of business is human to human. It's when I decide which doctor I want to go see, I really want to know what are other humans' experiences of engaging with this group of humans over here. I don't really care about your brand name so much. I mean, it might intrigue my curiosity, but ultimately I want to know, what do other people have to say about you, or what do you have to say about you? Okay, if you can speak to me as a consumer in my language, then I'm going to connect with you and I'm going to want to do business with you. If I have choices on where I can receive care, I'm going to go with the one that I feel like I have a relationship with.
Guys, this is ridiculous. This is the most amount of gold someone has dropped in the first 5 minutes of our podcast episode. I'm blown away here. So he's, in an eloquent way, Josh has just shared with us law of familiarity, right? The more you get to see someone on in person, on the phone, their recordings or YouTube, you feel like you know them. So by the time you meet them, you're like, oh my God, yeah, I feel like I know you. And we get that a lot. So law of familiarity. Number 2, law of reciprocity. You're giving tremendous amount of value. You're giving the best of what you're giving for free. If you do that, then they're like, man, if I pay for his coaching or his consulting or his expertise, I can't imagine what I'm going to get. And then finally, social proof, right? We've learned this from Robert Cialdini and influence. Social proof is everything. And guys, all of this together, it will make you what, Gary Vee talks about, being the ultimate influencer. And, it's taking what you already do. And he's not asking you to go off in a corner somewhere and record things, just to the wall. Just record all the things you're already doing and repurpose it. And he's showing you how to do it. Like, get a VA, use the technology. Like we use something called Perfect Recall as the software. And I learned that from Josh. And then, a VA doesn't cost much. And if you get the right VA, they can just package it all. And now you're producing 3 times the amount of content on Instagram. So that's amazing, Josh. So let me ask you this. Why don't more doctors reclaim their authority and get out there? What's holding them back?
Well, they haven't listened to enough episodes of your show. They need to go back and binge listen everything that you've been doing. And I think that they'll slowly start to get it. And again, I think that it's really, really easy. And I see this is the number one problem that I see. And doctors are not the only, everyone does this, is that normally when we think about what we should be communicating, it starts with, well, what do I talk about to myself? Like, what's in my inner voice? Or, what do I want people to know? Not what do people want to know from me? What do they want? Right. And so if you look at the content that I think works best of all, I don't think you can I'll just say this. I don't think you can overinvest in UGC, user-generated content, because I don't care how smart you are. Well, it's important to me, but just like you said, social proof, I want to know what my neighbors have to say about you, right? So if you're a part of any kind of neighborhood Facebook group, you've done the same thing. Who knows a great pressure washing company? Who knows a great plumber? Who knows a great electrician? Thinking about going to a dentist. What do you like? Who do you like? Right? That is just commonplace. That's how we buy now, because, and let me go back to some deeper stuff here. What's going on? So I've studied and led on consumer behavior for about over 15 years now. For the past 15, 20 years, the populations of the world, particularly in, places like the United States and very Western worlds and people with lots of access to technology, we've been part of this massive experiment where we have been bombarded with information and advertising and marketing and being sold at. So what do you think happens to, Dr. Vic, maybe you can help me with the right terminology here, because it's kind of like, when you bombard a virus with something, I'm so not using the right terminology, but it becomes hyper resistant at some point.
Yeah.
Right?
One word is refractory, or you become numb. I mean, it's all those are valid. Yeah.
Yes. So that's what's going on. Your clients out there, your future potential guests and clients and customers out there, they're numb from being marketed to they've been overly marketed to. So consumers have never been more protective of their time and attention. They've never been more on guard from being sold at. And so now what you're going to need to do is do the opposite of what marketers are doing. Because again, marketers rush to everything and they ruin everything. And so what you want to do is go back to, understanding that it's all human to human. And again, video, live in person is the highest touch, right? And then live video is kind of a distant number two, but it's still the best thing out there. Anytime you can do live video, it's always going to be higher touch. Then would be asynchronous video. You send me a video asking a question, I send you a video back and it's personalized to you. Okay. Then there's asynchronous video where I just record video and then I make that video available to you. I mean, as much video as you can produce, have someone in the office is following you around with a webcam and give them the assignment of like asking you questions, right? So one thing that I do is I keep a note card, and anytime, because it's hard to just say, okay, I got to record a bunch of stuff for social media. What do I talk about? That is the worst thing that you could do on yourself, is give yourself that kind of pressure. So best would be to record what you're already doing. Second best would be when you come up with an idea, jot it down, give it to somebody else and say, here, ask me these questions. Because it's really easy to answer questions, especially if you have someone giving you the prompts. And so, but yeah, video is absolutely your best play. And listen, we're living in a Zoom world now. We do everything on Zoom, and your clients want to, visit on Zoom. It's just embrace it.
Yeah. That is just super advice, especially the fact that just get someone to, follow you around, which is great. Otherwise, just have someone just ask you questions and then you record your answers on television or on Zoom or whatever. Let me ask you a question. So many doctors come to me and say, hey, Dr. Vic, or I want to start a podcast. I'm interested in starting a podcast. Everyone seems to be doing it. First of all, that's probably not the great reason to start it just because everyone's doing it. But number two, what are some strategies that are realistic so their podcast doesn't end up one of the many versus the mighty few that actually rise to the top and that exist even 2 to 3 years from now?
Yeah, well, listen, I think it's really important, just like we do anything else, right, is to have a business plan. Why would you do any activity? What's the business plan behind it? If you're counting on the fact that you're going to start producing content and then magically you're going to start building an audience, maybe. I almost feel like, Jim Carrey, in Dumb and Dumber, it's like more like 1 out of a million. So you're saying there's a chance, right? And so that becomes the motivation for us. How could you derive value from this, even if you didn't amass a big audience? Because building an audience is a slog. It's a lot of work. And so how can you get value from this in the meantime? Let me give you some ideas, right, of some things that you could do. I am a big fan of leveraging platform to build relationships, not just with audiences. That's an inevitability to an extent. Again, like it's going to be a lot of work, but how could you leverage this platform? Let's say you were committed to, I live in East Orlando, right? So if my commitment was to encourage people to live healthier in East Orlando, what would happen, instead of me just like, well, let me tell you all my great wisdom because I'm a really smart person. Instead, I go out in the community and I identify centers of influence and I have conversations with them and I enroll them into helping. If we have an honest conversation, let's say you grab a city council person or something like that, and they have a following. And you say, listen, this is something I'm committed to. Would you be a part of it? And you enroll them into your purpose. Now you have a partner in this. And most importantly, Dr. Vic, is you have new audience. See, I think that the best that you could hope for is that you can inspire a new audience to come show an interest in what you have to say. Doesn't mean that they're going to come become a lifetime customer right away, but at least now you've built up their curiosity to say, I want a little bit more of that. And then, it's going to take, 10, 15, 20, 30 touches. And then finally they pick up the phone, they call and they schedule an appointment with you. So what I would do if I were a doctor is I would identify all the centers of influence in my community. I would find, are there social media influencers? And I would try to co-create content with them. Why? Because number one, it's going to make the process of content creation a lot easier. But number two, and this is more important, is that I am already preaching to an audience that's been pre-congregated for me. So this city council person, this mayor, or this, realtor that seems to have a pretty big following in my area, I'm going to maybe just create like a, if I wanted to build up my practice, right? And I wanted to, and it was around the area of healthier living or, medicine or whatever. So find out, and just, 3 healthy habits. What a cool concept that would be, 3 healthy habits and it's only for people in East Orlando. That would be a really cool piece of content. Maybe it lives only on social media, but instead I'd say, record it for YouTube, then get it to a podcast, then slice and dice it and get it to all of the social media platforms, especially Instagram. If you're reaching out to consumers, maybe TikTok, but probably Instagram is probably going to be your best play. Facebook probably as well, right? And now get your partner that you collaborated with on this content together to promote that to all of their audiences. It's going to be branded to you. So now it's like every week you have all these centers of influence that are promoting your brand. This stuff works really, really well because today everybody is an influencer. You shouldn't, I was, kind of talking about identifying centers of influence, but ultimately, again, it's, the more that you can involve everybody into this, the better. It's ultimately going to be for you in terms of building up this overarching influence that you can use to grow your business.
So guys, if you're a docpreneur or you're like a doctor in a traditional practice, either way, Josh has just laid down the framework of how to start getting these sort of partners in the community, partners in your in different sectors that you overlap with. And what happens is you co-create, co-collaborate, create content. It drives whatever they're doing. It drives what you're doing. And eventually you're going to grow your audience and your exposure. And if you're adding value and you're offering services, they'll want to check you out. So
your worst case scenario is you just spent time with this person right here. They may become a client of yours now because you've spent time in proximity. Proximity leads to familiarity. Familiarity leads to know, like, and trust. And so, like I said, if all you did was, create one new lifetime customer, would it be worth it? I think so, probably.
So Josh, let me ask you a question. What are I'm going to switch gears here because I want to give something really tangible for the audience. What are some of the top books you recommend that you recommend to in this realm of media, influence, podcasting? What are the top ones?
Yeah. Well, on the issue very specifically of revenue generation and collaboration and leading with generosity to build that familiarity, know, like, and trust, and then great things happen. I'd recommend Bob Berg, Go Giver, Go Giver Sell More is a really good one that's specific to revenue generation. I think that Bomb is a product that I use where I send video emails to people because, again, video is much more impactful than text. And Ethan Butte from Bomb has done some really good work. Rehumanize Your Business is a good book. Their new one, Human-Centered Communication, is another really good one. Those are all pretty fantastic. Another really good book, I'd say 2022, I'm very, very bullish on community. And I just got done reading a book called The Business of Belonging, How to Build Communities That Grow the Bottom Line. It's by David Spinks. Again, community, I don't believe is one, that's an area I don't think you can overinvest in either. Instead of just having customers, could you create community and allow, within reasons and guidelines and ethical guidelines and so forth, can you allow your customers to connect with one another? Is there a bigger purpose that you believe in that you can enroll your community into and get them all to participate in some way and connect with one another? So now you're not the be all. So instead of just a bunch of one-on-one relationships, now you've created this sense where everybody is a part of belonging. And you look at these, a lot of top brands, they've really worked very hard to create community around their product. Can you do that? I think David Spink's book is pretty good on that.
That's awesome. So it's really the tribe, right? Creating that tribe, this movement, this mission that lives beyond just the product or the company.
Yes.
Yes. That's powerful. As we wrap up here, let me ask you a question. What do you think is the impact you want to have on this world?
Me? Oh my goodness. Well, so I have a really, listen, this goes back to, my time. I was in the United States Navy for 5 years, and I went to journalism school, and I got to learn from Adrian Cronauer. And Adrian Cronauer inspired me because up until that moment, I thought journalism was just going to be a fun job. But when I got to learn, and Adrian Cronauer was, if you know your 80s movies, he was portrayed by Robin Williams in the movie Good Morning Vietnam. And so when Staff Sergeant Cronauer spoke, he talked about the sacred obligation that we have, right? When you use platform, when you use a microphone, when you use a camera, when you use your mobile phone camera, when you post anything on social media, right? You're either brightening the world or you're dimming it a little bit. And so every time you post, you are exacting your influence. And what I would just say is use your influence for good. What is it that you want to create? And what I want to inspire is the fact that that everybody has this power. I believe that everybody has a message that could positively impact the world. And so think long and hard about what you share, because it really does matter today. Is it another conspiracy theory? Is it negativity? Is it complaining? And I think that that's appropriate at times for sure. But I think that people generally respond quite well to positivity. Particularly if you're in business for yourself, I would say be very careful about that. Generally try to stay focused on the positive sides of things. But yeah, so my impact is to get other people to realize the impact that they have.
That's beautiful, man. And it's so true. This elevate your message, don't just put anything out there. Elevate that message. Make sure it's going to help increase the frequency of this world, this country, the humanity. And that's so powerful. And, I've learned a ton from you, Josh. So thank you so much for your time here. And if they want to learn more about you, your programs, everything that you provide, and, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, listen, I mean, if there's anyone who's listening and you're in the B2B world, like you're a coach, consultant, agency owner, or anything like that, I'm always looking for great guests for my own podcast, The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. If you want to schedule an appointment or schedule a guest appearance, I'd love to celebrate you to my audience. I have a pretty big audience. And so you can find that when you go to my website. That website is www.upmyinc.com. upmyinfluence.com. Hover over where it says podcast, and then you'll see where it says The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. Click on that, and on there, there's a link for you can schedule an interview. If you are maybe newer in business, I am putting the finishing touches on right now. Actually, you can access it right now. If you go to upmyinfluence.com, right on the front page, you'll see where I either have a new quiz that should be going live here shortly, and that quiz is identify your top lead gen blockers. What is keeping your dream customers from connecting with you? I can tell you exactly what it is after you answer about 6-7 questions. Because most of I don't know what a lot of the gurus have been talking about. It's not real good. It's not very effective because I think it fundamentally boils down to treating people like numbers, and I don't think that's very magnetic. I don't think people like to be treated like dollar signs or numbers. So we have to kind of rehumanize the work that we're doing out there and just focus on relationships, particularly if you're in kind of the bigger ticket side of things, or you're kind of more B2B or that sort of thing.
Wow, Josh, thank you so much, man. That's like a wealth of information. Guys, all of that's going to be in the show notes. So please be on the lookout. Again, his website's upmyinfluence.com. I highly recommend it if you're really ready to sort of spread your wings and become an influencer. Get on his podcast. And with that, guys, until next time, stay phenomenal. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Dr. Vic.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below or simply visit vikramraya.com. So until next time, my friends, be phenomenal.